My name is Mike Russo from Russo's Books in Bakersfield, California, and this is the Children's Author Showcase.
Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators Central Coastal California Chapter, in conjunction with Russo's Books, presents Children's Author Showcase, Episode 1, Jacob Riis's Camera, written by Alexis O'Neill, illustrated by Gary Kelly, published March 2020.
Thank you for joining us. The genesis of the Children's Author Showcase was born out of the 2020 Shelter-at-Home Order. Authors are still writing and publishing wonderful stories, but of course unable to partake in school visits, library readings, and bookstore signings. This video series will allow you to hear directly from these authors as soon as their book is published. We will also house past videos on the Russo's Books website, as well as offer you the opportunity to purchase them at a discount. To kick off our series, I'm pleased to welcome author Alexis O'Neill to the Children's Author Showcase. Take it away, Alexis.
Thanks, Mike. Hi, everybody. I'm Alexis O'Neill, and you might know me by some of my other picture books. One is The Recess Queen, illustrated by Laura Haliska-Beath. Or you might know The Kite That Bridged Two Nations, illustrated by Terry Widener. But today I'm here to talk to you about my new picture book biography called Jacob Riis's Camera, Bringing Light to Tenement Children. Actually, I want to tell you there are three main areas that I want to share with you today. First is the story of Jacob Riis. The second is how I came up with this idea to begin with. And the third is to show you some of the wonderful illustrations that are in this book. Well, Jacob Riis was a Danish immigrant that came over to America in 1870. And as often happens, as an immigrant, he had like tons of different kinds of jobs just to piece a life together and to earn enough money. But he was actually homeless at one point. Then he got a lucky break. And that lucky break was someone offered him a position as a reporter on a newspaper. And that's what became his life. What he especially liked reporting on were the conditions of living in New York City during those days. And what he saw wasn't really great. In Mulberry Bend was one of the poorest areas of New York City, and it was filled with tenement buildings. And these tenement buildings were dark, disease-ridden, crowded, and he wanted change brought to it. He wanted children to have clean environments to play in. He wanted families to be able to live safely in them. But no matter how many articles he wrote, he really couldn't affect any change until something happened. You see, he read in the newspaper a tiny article about a new invention coming from Germany, and it was flash powder. Now, this flash powder would enable one to take photographs inside dark places and illuminate them. And all of a sudden, Riis knew what he was going to do. He was going to take pictures, put his words with them, and then if people saw the conditions in the tenements, maybe then they'd be moved to make changes. So the story is about that. But also in this book, there's the story of Jacob as a child, and the fact that when he was a very young boy, he wanted to make a difference in the world. And he actually saved his allowance money to give to a poor area, living area in the city, so that they could tidy things up. And so he was always concerned with that, and it followed through his entire life. So when he combined his photographs with his words, he made actually quite a big stir. He gave lectures with his photographs illustrating them. He wrote a book called How the Other Half Lives, and that was finally the thing that got the wheels going and moving to make improvements in the tenements of the time. Well, I promised you I'd tell you how I came up with the idea for this book. You know, ideas sometimes don't just explode out of your head and you say, that's it, a big flash of lightning. Sometimes it's a layering of one thing on top of another until you go, aha, I think there's something here that's worth sharing with readers. So actually what happened to me was this. You see, years ago, This is the first layer. Years ago, I lived in Syracuse, New York, and I was the member of the Syracuse Camera Club. And every month we'd have competitions for, our photographs, but there was a competition I especially liked, and it was called the slide show competition. So that meant that you would take your images and then you would write a narration that would go with it. And I loved that. And of course, now I'm a picture book writer, and you can see where that love has started for me a long time ago. Well, then many years later, you see, I'd never heard of Riis before, but I knew his photographs. So when I was in the bookshop at Lowell Mills in Massachusetts, I saw this book on the rack, How the Other Half Lives. Now, I had heard that particular title before, but hadn't read the book. But I was familiar with that photograph. I went, oh, it's by this guy up here. How about that? So I bought the book and started reading. Well, that book, as it happens, led to another book by Alexander Allen, who actually was the one to help first mount the first exhibition of Jacob Riis's works. And there's a pretty big mystery involved with that as to where were Jacob's photographs for years and years and years, and nobody knew where they were. And the answer to that is there. I have it in the back matter of my book so you can find out the answer. But then that book led me to this book, which is the autobiography of Jacob Riis, and it's called The Making of an American. And it was as if Jacob Riis were right beside me, or talking like at the dinner table and telling about his life, and he sounded so warm and interesting and candid, and I thought, wow. And that's when I sat up and I started thinking, I bet kids would love to learn about this man, about Jacob Riis, the man who gave his allowance to help people in his town when he was a young boy. So that's how it all started, and of course the research went on from there. But those were the three main bits that got me going, the three main layers of getting going on the research. So then I promised to share with you also some of the book itself. Now I want to show you first a picture. This is how Gary envisioned Jacob as a young boy in Ribe, Denmark. Then let's see if I can get it here. Now, this is when Jacob, the flash plotter was invented, so he could take pictures inside the tenement buildings. And this is what I wrote. What Jacob saw in those neighborhoods gripped his heart. Tenement buildings obscuring the skies, apartments jammed with immigrants, Slavs, Italians, Jews, Irish, Chinese, families toiling in stifling sweatshops, the stench of mold and kerosene choking the air, privies overflowing in the courtyards, children without green places to play. So that's just a little bit about that. And then what he did from there when he made that discovery. And it's actually quite amusing the way he took his pictures to begin with, and pretty surprising. So later on, when he got his pictures, he would take his quote unquote, sort of like a show on the road. And he had projected these life-size images so people could see them. And then he would talk about them and tell anecdotes about them. And that really got people involved with the whole tenement issue at the time. And then his book, How the Other Half Lives, really became a bestseller, and things started changing. So I think Gary Kelly did a fabulous job with the images in the book, including, the images of portraying people on the street. And this is one of Jacob working very hard at all different kinds of jobs when he first came here. So the other thing I want to share with you is in the back of the book. I love doing this part too when I do a biography, is that there's a lot of back matter here. So you see a picture of Jacob Riis, and this is his whole family over here. But in it, I have information about the immigrant experience, the progressive era, his family, his relationship with Theodore Roosevelt. And then about his camera. He never considered himself a photographer, and yet he's considered like the foremost social photojournalist of his time. But it was sort of like that. His words meant more to him than the pictures, but the pictures and words were what really made him famous. But there's a timeline in here, a glossary, what he accomplished, and then selected sources. Now I want you to see this one picture here. Let's get over here. This is a picture of a little baby in a staircase, and he was able to light it up with his camera, the flash powder, so that people could see it. And that really tugged at a lot of hearts, seeing a little kid in such conditions. So I really hope that you got something from this, that you get as excited about Jacob Riis as I did, because I think you're going to find a really heartwarming story in here. So I want to thank Russo's very much for providing this opportunity to share my book with you. And I wish you all lots of happy reading ahead. Bye-bye now.
Thank you, Alexis. That was wonderful. And congratulations on your new book. We're excited for you and excited for the opportunity. We appreciate it. To purchase Jacob Riis's camera, please visit www.russosbooks.com/children. By visiting this website, you will not only be able to purchase Alexis' book, but you'll also see a link to her interview. And not just her interview, but also future authors that we will be spotlighting. When buying from Russo's Books, you not only support independent book selling, but you receive a 15% discount on all purchases. In addition, we also offer free shipping if your total cart equals $35 or more. In partnership with the SCBWI, we are also able to give you an autographed book plate from Alexis and Neil every time you purchase Jacob Riis's camera. Thank you.